Our guest today is Brian Fox. He is the CEO of Richelieu Foods, a private label pizza manufacturer. There's a good chance that you've eaten their products and didn't even know it. They manufacture pizza for many grocery stores and delis across the country. We discuss pizza, of course, but we also talk about the food industry in general, where it is going, and where it is under attack. Brian really cares about this industry, and you'll see that passion from the very beginning. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk pizza, okay? So tell us about contract manufacturing and contract manufacturing pizza.
Okay, yeah. So look, I like to say that the concept of private label, store brands, contract manufacturing are all kind of different sides of the same kind of task or same kind of job that we do here. The story of whether you want to call it contract manufacturing or call it private brands or store brands or just your own, manufacturing, it's really simple. We decide what those products are, and we work with our partner customers to kind of decide what we want that product to be. How do we want it to look? How do we want it to taste? What size, what kind of price point are we trying to hit and target? And then we design backwards into the formulations, the mix, the products that we put on those things to kind of deliver what either the retailer is expecting, another brand is expecting, or, we expect as a final consumer for a product that's acceptable to the market. So I kind of call those things, like I said, different sides of the same coin. The reality is branded manufacturing and contract manufacturing or private label manufacturing are really all the same. We're trying to define that product that meets the consumer expectations, and we're working backwards in our systems to try to figure out the ways to deliver those things.
Okay, so when you have someone come to you and say, I want a pizza that tastes exactly like, Pizza Hut or something, then you go about making that happen with your R&D group?
Yeah, actually, so yeah, really good question, and I'll kind of maybe walk you through the process on how we do that. So let's just say somebody comes in, as you said, wants the Pizza Hut pizza. Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go out and buy a bunch of Pizza Hut pizzas, so that we can try to determine what are the things that we need to match. Is there a specific flavor profile coming from the sauce so that we can try to develop a sauce that matches that? What is this crust like? Can we find the characteristics within our own set of crusts that we have, or do we need to design something new? And so we try to separate each of those things. We kind of call it scraping. So we'll literally take a pizza, and if it's possible, we'll scrape everything off of that pizza. We want to weigh the cheese as much as possible to try to go, okay, they put X ounces of cheese on there. They put Y ounces of pepperoni or Z ounces of vegetables and sauce, and we try to get the crust weight right. So, oh gosh, the Pizza Hut crust is, 17.4 ounces. Okay, can we get a 17.4 ounce crust? Yes, you can. And so we're really trying to get very granular and define all those details, because ultimately that's what we need to be able to understand to deliver against that expectation as we work forward now to go, yes, we found the crust that matches. We're going to take that Pizza Hut crust. We're going to divide it up. We're going to cook it. We're going to try to look at the texture of, is that an open cell texture inside the bread? Is it a closed cell texture? Do we think that's a rising crust? Do we think it's a thin crust? What are the characteristics that we find in here? And then we go with our R&D team and our production team back and go, hey, do we have something that matches this or is close to it? Do we need to develop something new? And so we're getting super, super granular all the way through the process to try to create that match as closely as possible. I would say we kind of have a term in our business that we call the golden tongue. So, the gold is often in the eye of the beholder. And so, everybody's taste buds are different. Everybody's palate is slightly different. And so when we on our side believe that we have that match, we've tasted a lot, we're cooking up our product, we're, looking at the competitor product, and we feel like we've got a match. Ultimately, now then it goes to the customer, and the customer says, does it match? And what you will find is inevitably there's always slight tweaks, even though we believe we've gotten it right, because everybody tastes things slightly differently. We probably have to do another small adjustment. Very rarely do you get everybody to go, yeah, that's it, perfect, you got it, because of those differences. But it's fun. I think it's fun. Our R&D team loves it too and thinks it's fun.
Yeah. You probably get somebody who'll say, make it just like Pizza Hut, but I don't want it as salty. And you're thinking, what does that mean as salty? Because what you think is salty, what I think is salty are two different things.
Totally. And that's kind of why we jokingly call it the golden time, because you just don't know. It is, and your taste buds change depending on what you've done. So did you burn your tongue on coffee this morning because you went to Starbucks, you got a really hot cup of coffee? I kind of burnt my tongue a little bit, and now I'm going to go into the lab and try to taste product. Guess what? You're going to taste it a little bit differently than you would have if you didn't. And so getting that right, getting the nuances right on that is really hard, takes time. But, we're able to get it. We're able to get it. It just, takes that right time. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times of doing it and going through the process, and everybody kind of going, yeah, we think we got it this time. Because it varies day to day. It's hard to get right, but it's fun.
Yeah. So you have all these pizzas you're making for all these, I know grocery store chains, you do it, and you do it for Sam's, some places like that. So this is all over the country. And I know that pizza is different in different parts of the country. So you guys can't make a one size fits all pizza because, people in New York like right. Pizza different than Chicago, then different than California. So what do you do there?
Yeah. It's funny. We were just, I will kind of give you a context of the story here, which is we were just working with our parent company in Germany on some things about the U.S. market. And, the guy in Germany says, well, the people in the U.S. market that are your heaviest pizza consumers are changing because there's a lot more, Hispanic and Latin culture coming into the U.S. and they maybe don't eat pizza the same way. And he kind of classified pizza as Italian food. And I kind of corrected him. I said, oh, I don't really classify pizza as Italian food. It's American food. So it may have that Italian, heritage in the picture, but at the end of the day, it's an American food. And yes, like America, we have a heavy population of Italian heritage in the Northeast. We have a heavy population of German, Polish, and other parts of the country that settled in the Midwest. And we have different people that settled in the South, and California's palates are really different too. And Maureen, that's why we have over 30 different crusts that we use, because we're trying to find the things that meet it for that particular need. We have customers who go, hey, I want a rising crust. Well, we've got 6 different formulations on rising crust because we want it to rise more, we want it to rise a little less, we want it to be a little bit more dense, we want it to be a little bit more airy. We have variations on stuffed crust, we have variations on thin crust, because you're right. The beauty of the American product of pizza is that it's different everywhere. Everybody has their little thing. We're working right now on a Detroit style pizza, which is, really different than a Chicago deep dish style pizza. So the Detroit style pizza is generally square. It's generally very thick. And what it's done is there is sometimes cheese or other things on the bottom of the pizza that gives that outer edge of the crust a real crunch and a real bite and a chewiness to it. Sometimes it's a butter on the bottom that that almost kind of fries the crust a little bit as you bake it. But it's just having that experience makes it very different than a Chicago deep dish style pizza. So to me, it's what makes pizza such a fun business and such a cool category are these variations and how you decide what works and what doesn't work. It's a dynamic category, and it's a uniquely American category that you can kind of customize for different people in different areas. I keep saying that it's a fun business because it is. It is a fun business, and we love to eat pizza at our office and have some hot and fresh every single day. So there's good things about that, bad things about that. We try to moderate it, but it just makes it a fun place to work.
Yeah. Now, I've never heard of Detroit style pizza, but have you ever seen a pierogi pizza?
A pierogi pizza.
Do you know what a pierogi is?
I do know what a pierogi is. No, I can't say that I have seen a pierogi style pizza.
Well, if you come to Western Pennsylvania, you can get a pierogi pizza, and I will tell you, it's a crust, usually with a garlic butter sauce put on it, or with maybe in the order they would do it. They would do the crust, they do mashed potatoes, okay, and then onions sautéed in some garlic butter and put on top of it. And that's really all it is. Oh, and the cheese. You got the mozzarella cheese. So you have just mashed potatoes, the onions and the butter, the cheese, and the crust. And a lot of restaurants will make you a pierogi pizza. So
it sounds delicious. Because you had me with the holy trinity of Italian cooking: butter, garlic, and onion. That's the holy trinity of Italian cooking. You got those three things, and you've already got me as a fan and wanting to try it.
So you should go into your test kitchen and make one of those and see what happens. I would sell in Western Pennsylvania. I don't know where else, but we would all buy it.
Yeah, got it. I will talk to our R&D lead on that, Jim, and say, hey Jim, have you seen a pierogi pizza? I'm gonna try to whip one of those up. Yeah, the culinary background, so he loves. If I bring in something like that, he'll be all on it. He'll be like, okay, I can do it. When do you want to taste it?
I know it would sell around here, but I run into lots of people in the country who don't know what a pierogi is. So they would be kind of...
Yeah, that's true.
They would be kind of like, what's a pierogi pizza? Well, it's a great thing. And like I said, we have restaurants that'll make it. Because we have Mexican pizzas. We have, like you said, that's not really Italian. Anything you can throw on that crust and get to your mouth with some cheese. I think that's it. It has to be crust and cheese. And if you got anything else is up for grabs.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing, as you were talking, you kind of made me reflect back on years and years and years ago, 20-ish, maybe 25 years ago. I went to a pizza convention out in Las Vegas, and one of the guys that spoke at the pizza convention in Las Vegas was Wolfgang Puck. And as you know, Wolfgang Puck is very famous for the super high-end pizza restaurant in LA called Spago. So I didn't, until I kind of got into the food business, I didn't really understand what Spago was. But that's really what it is, a high-end pizza place. So Wolfgang Puck was up on stage, and he was kind of talking about pizza and the fun things about it. And he said, "Look, it's a meal uniquely designed to share around the table." He says it's a round pizza. It's round, with the exception of Detroit. We'll hold on that for a minute. But in general, it's round. And what happens at round tables? People share. Every slice is equal. Everybody is involved in the conversation at a round table versus a square or a rectangular or other things like that, where you're facing each other across this thing. He says, it's the meal perfectly designed for natural interaction. And I had never thought about that before until he spoke about it. And you kind of go, gosh, it's right, Um, look, there are other foods that fit in that area. Pies and cakes do the same thing. They're kind of round. You can eat them at the table. You can share them in that same way. You can get those equal slices and have that involvement. But I love the concept of thinking about food as more than food and a connection. And if you think about when your family gets together, whether it's your close in family or an extended family, where do people end up spending their time? Most of the time it's in the kitchen. Whether it's by design or not, everybody kind of defaults to the kitchen. And so thinking about food as this sharing event, as this gathering event, as something beyond just the need to, I'm hungry, I've got to eat something. It's fun. And pizza delivers on that very well. Again, not the only food that delivers on that very well, but it kind of the natural shape of it kind of lends itself to that. And when you think about food as that gathering point, as that connection point, you kind of go, gosh, that's a really good concept. And frankly, it's part of what makes being in the food business so much fun. I mean, I love the food business. I've been doing this for 34 years. So I've seen a lot. I've been in a lot of different categories, but I just love the dynamic of you can help create products that, provide value to consumers. I mean, most of my career has been on the private label side of the business. And I go, hey, I try to help everybody's dollars go further. And that's cool and that's fun. And I can help create new ideas that you can see on the shelf very immediately. My son was in the automotive business for a number of years, and he's like, yeah, the cool thing about the automotive business is this, big sexy thing that you can kind of see driving down the road. But, we're working on stuff now that I won't see on the street for another 4 years. Well, that doesn't happen in food. I mean, we can go from an idea to on the shelf in 4 or 5 months in the right cases. And that dynamic of the food industry, I think is really, really cool, and it's fun, and you just connect to it because everybody eats and wants to eat well and have fun doing it. And so that's part of why I've enjoyed my time in this industry, and it's been a fit for me probably than I've done a lot of other things wouldn't have been as good a fit as food.
Yeah, well, I have found with working in the food industry for about 30 years is that when you make a product that makes people happy, and I don't mean your food made them happy, I mean food in general, people buy it because they like it, you end up having that it kind of pervasive into your company, meaning that the people you hire are happy because they're making other people happy. So I've talked to people in other industries and they sound like the people they work with are miserable. Everybody's miserable. They got a miserable thing they're working on. It could be something like, screws and bolts and, wiring or something that's just not a happy product. But people in the food industry, they're happy about this because they know that if they made the customer happy, they sell more product. I mean, yes, some people do choose a pizza by the price. Sometimes they choose it by a particular brand or commercial or something. But when it comes down to it, if they're looking at that pizza and they go, I really like, pepperoni and black olive, they're going to buy that pizza. I really like Mexican pizza, or I really like a pierogi pizza. They're going to buy it and they're going to go home and they're going to be happy. And especially if it does what they want it to do. Because I know that I have expectations. If it is a cheap pizza, I expect it to taste like a cheap pizza. And if it's an expensive pizza, it better taste like an expensive pizza.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, Marie. And I will say the other cool thing about pizza is there's a very easy ability to make it your own. Mm-hmm. So you go to the store, you buy the pepperoni pizza, and you bring it home and you go, I love black olives. Well, guess what? most people probably have some olives somewhere, whether it's in a can or in a jar or whatever that they can, if they're already sliced, they just open it up and sprinkle it on the pizza. And now you got a super black olive and pepperoni pizza. Or if they go, I really like hot peppers on my pizza, and I can't find a pizza out in the market that's got the peppers at the spice that I like. You got them in your fridge or wherever you pick them out of the garden. It's pretty easy to slice them up and pop them on top. So that ability to kind of customize it very quickly, very easily, and kind of make it your own is another thing that is kind of fun about our category. You can do that in other categories, but something about getting the product that's, let's call it 90% of what you want and adding that other 10% for your own personal flair is easier and faster in this category than it is in some others. It's not like I'm making a pot roast from scratch. And by the way, I love pot roast, not good pot roast, love it. But, that's a long and involved kind of deal to do that. Well, gosh, I can chop up some peppers and banana peppers and jalapenos and open up a can of black olives and put all those things on my pizza inside of about 5 minutes. And then you're ready to roll with something that's now yours and not just with the convenience and speed that, often we're challenged with in our life because we got kids that are, in between, we just got off from school. We've got a soccer practice tonight and a softball practice, for one kid and soccer for the other. We're trying to get in between two. Okay, boom, I could pop this in the oven in 25 minutes and do my little customization. Now I've got our own meal as opposed to just a fast food meal or something like that. So kind of just another one of the little cool things about our segment.
Yeah. And the other thing is it's all about compromise because we might have 4 people that want 4 different things and we have 2 pizzas. Well, you know what? We can do that because we can do a half a pizza each. We can do pepperoni pizza, half with mushroom, half with black olive. We can do, somebody wants, all these things instead of picking things off a pizza, instead of ordering a pizza and picking stuff off. And, I love veggie pizza and I don't care what vegetable you put on it as long as you put chicken on it, So all these restaurants, all these, places, whether it's a frozen pizza or a restaurant pizza, they have veggie pizzas, but nobody has chicken. So I just put my own chicken on it. And if somebody else wants pepperoni on that, they just stick pepperoni on their half. So I've always said this is the best thing to compromise on.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because, I have 3 kids. They're all out of the house now, and doing their own things. But, I said, that was often the challenge of the evening is what are we going to eat? And trying to get 5 people to decide on the same thing can be a challenge. Even though you're in the same family, you kind of go, hey, we've been raised at the same taste. Well, why can't everybody like olives or why can't everybody like mushrooms? But yeah, that's a challenge, and especially with younger kids who tend to be a little bit more picky about things than older ones.
Talk to us a little bit about this. You do frozen pizza, and you also don't you do like ready to bake or ready to eat or what? Wow, tell us all about the different kinds of pizzas, how we can get them.
Yeah, so look, two kind of main ways that we do it. Frozen pizza that you would see in the frozen section of grocery stores. And then the other part is a deli pizza. So the deli pizzas are we make them and freeze them here. We ship them to retailers. Retailers tend to thaw those out and put them in the deli section. Same kind of quality, but because they're thawed out in the deli section, they're more fresh. They cook a little bit quicker. Generally, they're larger in size because that's kind of what fits for the people that are deli shopping, and because they're buying it in in deli, you probably are more likely to customize those things. So it is another option for it. We also put those. A lot of different retailers buy those today in pizza boxes. I mean, they literally look like the Domino's box or the Pizza Hut box. So you can kind of open that up, take it home, pop it in the fridge. It kind of competes, a bit more with the make and take kind of pizza chains, where you walk in and go, hey, I want a pizza, put this on it and this on it, this on it, this on it. Well, guess what? In some cases, those guys are buying frozen dough balls and they just thaw them out, spread them out into a pizza and make it there. It's kind of similar to that. So a little bit more fresh, generally a little bit more premium. Sometimes we have larger quantities of ingredients or larger sizes to kind of change the texture and bite of particular products.
So do you ever make pizzas for like stadiums and ballparks and places like that?
It depends. We just started a new pizza business with Regal Cinemas. So, you can go into cinemas now and get kind of a flatbread type pizza, personal flatbread pizza. We actually just started shipping those in the last month. So, stadiums and things like that are kind of go through the food service channel. We do a little bit of business like that, but the majority of the things that we do today are focused on retail. But yeah, we're excited about this partnership with Regal Cinemas, and hopefully we could turn that into an even bigger business. Again, those things are generally much more personal size, so that they can bake it, in store. They put it in one of those little kind of conveyor belt ovens. Can cook them up pretty quickly and take it back to your seat and enjoy it while you enjoy your favorite movie.
So let's give people some perspective on how many pizzas do you make? Like a day, a month, a year? How many pizzas are we talking about?
Over 100 million a year. So it's a big number.
Wow.
100 million is a lot of pizzas. We're not the biggest pizza guy. I think the biggest single site pizza plant is in Salina, Kansas. And I think they make about 500 million out of that single site plant in Kansas. And that's with a branded guy.
Wow. All right. So we just came through the pandemic and everybody screamed about the supply chain. How did that affect you guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely affected us. It was a huge, huge deal. I would say the primary effect on us was around elements that go into the product, and the element that impacted us the most was cardboard packaging. So, like all people in the manufacturing business, because of aging populations, because of people that decided to retire during the pandemic, or chose not to go into work for whatever the reasons are. We had a lot of paper companies that supplied products. And by the way, it may not be just because they didn't go into work or they decided to retire. It was also kind of the double whammy of people staying at home and buying things from Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, you kind of had this double challenge of increased demand for cardboard because of home shipping, as well as labor challenges that came up in the pandemic. The double hit of those things really put a cramp on that supply chain. And for a paper industry that was used to growth of 1 or 2% a year, all of a sudden had 7 or 8 or 10% growth in demand. The spare capacity on that side of the industry just it went away overnight, unfortunately. And so that was probably the longest lasting impact for us of the supply chain from the pandemic.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies the last, I don't know, like 20 years, I had a brother who was in logistics and he said they were so proud of doing everything in what we used to call just in time. You never warehoused things that you could order and get on time. So why would you warehouse, hundreds of millions of pieces of cardboard boxes, because your supplier just gave them to you right on time, right when you needed them.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and then some people got ahead of the curve and started hoarding. I know companies said that they bought we're usually bought a month ahead. Now we bought 6-9 months worth of this, which meant somebody else who didn't get right on that button to order was left out in the cold.
Yeah, and I would say that was also a factor in what I call the whiplash of the supply chain. Is all of a sudden, whether it was the consumer at the store going, "Ooh, I'm not going to be here again for 2 more weeks, so I'm going to buy, instead of buying 1 of this, I'm going to buy 5 of this." Well, hell, they still ate the 1, but they put the other 4 in the freezer. So it happened at every level, from the consumer all the way back through, going, the retailer's going, "Oh my gosh, I can't order 1,000 of these. I'm going to order 5,000." And then, then that signal reaches us as a supplier, and we go, "Oh, I'm instead of getting an order for 1,000, I got an order for 5,000. So we're going to order 10,000 of this." And it just kind of backed itself up in the supply chain, and that's kind of why they call it the whiplash, because that's exactly what happened, was whiplash. It was kind of an over adjustment to a very quick change in the demand signal that contributed to it. So not only did the consumer behavior change, retailer behavior change, manufacturer behavior change, at the same time as we're seeing, labor behavior change, all for good reasons, all for good reasons through the supply chain. And I, having been in the business for a really, really, really long time, my wife, when the pandemic hit, she's like, "Oh my gosh, are we really going to run out of toilet paper?" I'm like, "No, we're not really going to run out of toilet paper."
Well, you might
give it a little bit of time.
You might personally run out of it and have to borrow from the neighbors, but
yeah, exactly. But as the United States, no, we're not really going to run out of these things. I said you've just got to give the industry time to react to that. And unfortunately, the news of, "Oh my gosh, there's a run on X, Y, or Z," kind of contributed to it too. So people make decisions based on emotions, and we use logic to rationalize our emotional decision. And so when you hear of shortage, what do? The emotion goes, "Oh my gosh, that means we got to run out and do this." And so we kind of created this false demand that had a long-term impact to unwind. I knew that our industry generally would have the capacity, whether you're in pizza, whether you're in paper, whether you're in cardboard, we generally have the capacity in the United States to kind of solve and resolve those things. It just depends on the time. No manufacturing company that operates efficiently and effectively has 50% of free capacity sitting open at any point in time. That's just it's not logical. You can't afford that. Nobody can afford to have that amount. We try to run, with a zone of spare capacity that's, let's call it in the, 5 to 15% range, or 5 to 20% range. Because any more than that, and you've just got capital that's not being used, you've got labor that's not being used, and that's really, really expensive. And so we try to manage those things down to a zone of normal deviation. And when you get, 3 or 4 times that deviation, you just can't respond to it immediately. I kept saying, we'll be fine, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. You just got to give us a little bit of time to react. You've got to give the emotion to give way to logic. And when people come home and go, hey, I've got no more place to put, 36 packs of, or 64 packs of toilet paper and paper towels. Guess what? That means your signal for demand is going to go the other direction, and the rest of the industry is going to catch back up.
I was one of those people who said, oh, we'll be fine on the toilet paper. Do not worry about it. My husband, goes to the store and he comes home and goes, there is no toilet paper. And I said, none? Come on. People didn't he goes, yep, they all watched the news. They ran out and bought it. So we're down to 5 rolls and 4 rolls. And I'm going, you know what? Maybe we should have panicked a tiny bit and bought some toilet paper. So I had a friend who actually was the manager at Sam's Club. And I said, would you please tell me when you have toilet paper? Because we didn't panic and buy any. He said, okay. But I don't remember if I had to not borrow, but had to get somebody to gift me some toilet paper because we didn't react fast enough. And after that, I reacted a little better. I still didn't think hoarding was the good idea. I still didn't think that there was any reason to buy 20 boxes of Ziploc bags or, pallets of paper towels or toilet paper. So I did better, to just be a little bit ahead. So as you called it, the whiplash, because I kept telling everybody, you know what? These toilet paper guys are making toilet paper so fast right now that we're soon going to be sitting here with toilet paper up to the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it. I know it'll turn around. But like I said, I reacted the opposite in the beginning when I thought, oh, this will be a week. It'll just be a week that we won't have any toilet paper.
Yeah, by the way, that was my approach to you. That was our approach to you. Again, because I've been in the business and you kind of go, yeah, look, spikes happen, they go away. And to the paper industry's credit, they worked really, really hard to ramp up demand or supply like crazy. I mean, they worked overtime. They started adding shifts and guess what? They caught up. I knew they were going to catch up. It was just the matter of time of how long it would take to catch up. And I actually think they caught up pretty quickly for the panic buying that happened. And then probably a year later becomes the whiplash of everybody going, oh my gosh, I got 400 rolls here. So I'm not going to be in the market again for, 6 months.
Yeah, I figured that would happen.
The grocery industry is, in general, a pretty good place on those kind of things. Not everything, but food in general is still North and South American sourced. So we didn't generally have the same problems as at semiconductors. Where I'm waiting for it to come from China. And oh, by the way. The demand for container ships, it impacted things and stuff like that. So food, even though the food industry is global, don't get me wrong, we are global. We source things from other parts of the world to make it fit here. A fair chunk of it was still very much North and South American sourced, and that made it easier to recover than if I were buying, cups from somewhere else. I mean, these plastic cups are guaranteed. If I look at the bottom, they're made in China because that's kind of where the plastic industry went for environmental reasons, for cost reasons. So our industry had some insulation from that other industries didn't have insulation from. And so when the pandemic hit, I was living in Philadelphia, and one of the guys I was in a share group of fellow CEOs, and one of the guys that I was in the share group with was in the home products industry business, and their factory was in China, and he's like, hey, the price of a container went from $2,000 to $15,000, almost overnight, and what am I going to do? Because even at $15,000, and I'm willing to pay the $15,000, even though I'm it totally, destroys my business's economics, I'm willing to pay it, but I just can't even get a ship to get it on, because the demand for other things just exploded overnight. So, that was one of the positives of being in the food business, is we didn't have quite those same challenges as other people. And look, I think everybody across the world has kind of rethought or rethinking those dependencies and going, is there, instead of making it all China, should we have some in China and some in Mexico? Or is China the right place? Maybe we add other countries, that redundancy of supply. Look, that's what happened to us on paper. Yeah, for our particular business, is going, hey, we got to have redundancy of supply in this thing. We were very much partnered up with a supplier in these areas, and we go, how do we get redundancy? Because that to me is the lesson of the pandemic, is redundancy. So how do I have 2 suppliers for this, or 3 suppliers if it's a particularly key area? And we're putting those things in place. And in general, I think if we had a pandemic again in 2 years, or whatever it would be, we would respond as an industry much better than we did last time. I can't tell you that everybody will go through it without a hiccup, because I don't think that that's a right assessment either. But I think we will be able to handle it much better, much more efficiently and effectively than we did last.
Yeah. And I think some U.S. boutique businesses that were like specialty kind of companies suddenly got a lot of business, because no one had to ship it anywhere, and they got to sell some things. Some people went crazy. I hope they've kept up their business since then, but I know they had that chance. The food industry is always kind of a funny thing as we talk about some of the demand. I always laugh when there's a food company or a product that might go out of business and everybody panics. And the one I'm thinking about has nothing to do with you and your business, but like something like when they closed Hostess briefly, and Twinkies. And everybody's buying Twinkies on eBay because they're like, there'll never be Twinkies again. And I bring that up because I find the average person has no clue what food manufacturing is like, and that there isn't some little old lady or little old man making Twinkies, and now he's not making them anymore, and you guys will never get your Twinkie again. And I told everybody, I said, it'll be fine. Necco wafers was another one that closed briefly, and everybody thought, there'll never be Necco wafers again, and how are we going to survive without that nostalgic candy? So I try to explain to people. So when you run into people and you tell them that you work at a food company and you make food, and they have no clue. I think they all think that it must be at the back of the grocery store. They must be making pizzas back there. They must be, pouring the milk in the containers. I don't think a lot of people get it. Now, I know they watch the show, how it's made and things like that, but I don't think they get the scope of it.
No, they don't. Yeah. So look, I'm from North Carolina. There's not a whole lot of food industry in North Carolina. There are pork plants or chicken plants and things like that. But in general, there's not a whole lot of food industry there. So for the first, 20 years, I would tell, hey, I'm in the cheese business or the pasta business, depending on the time of career. They go, oh, wow. So you just go all the grocery stores and take cheese to them? No, it's not like that. It's the American food supply chain is the single most efficient and effective food supply chain in the world. Because of that, because it runs so well, 99.9% of the time, people it's out of their mind. They just go to the grocery store and it's there.
Yep.
It's only when it becomes a problem, like during the pandemic, going, where does this come from? That people start trying to understand a little bit more about it. And so I think that's a credit to the industry that we built in the United States because we're really good at it, really, really good at it. The American consumer spends a lower percentage of their dollar on food than any other country in the world. So I think it's something around, and I'm going to get the number wrong, but 11 to 14% of our income is spent on food. That's the lowest percentage of anywhere else in the world. So because we work so well, it's just out of people's mind. They just don't think about it. And so again, full credit to our industry for doing that and for being so good at it. But it does make it a hidden industry. And so when you tell people you do that, they kind of go, well, how does that happen? They seem to be more connected with understanding how cars are made than or some other durable good than they are with what happens in the food segment. And I'm okay with that. In general, that means we've done a pretty darn good job of doing it. Now, the flip side of that, Maureen, is I think the food industry is starting to be demonized a little bit for, we're processed, or we're ultra processed, or we're depending on the newspaper you read, the food companies are killing us in America.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I've been in this business for a long time. There is nobody in the food industry that wakes up and goes, how do I make people fatter? How do I get more sodium to them? How do I get more sugar into them? That doesn't happen.
No.
That doesn't happen. Every person that I know in the food business goes into going, how do I make a better product? How do I try to make it more affordable for more people? How do I deliver, on nutrition in a way that works for people? And so that lack of visibility of the industry is biting us a little bit now. I'm in an association called the American, Frozen Food Institute, and we're doing some advocacy work in Washington, D.C. And one of the things that is happening now is, the industry or the government is trying to define what is fresh food, what is processed food, what is ultra processed food. So this is kind of a passion of mine because I like to say at the end of the day, all we are is a really big kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to make the food that you want to buy affordable and efficient. We are not in the business of jacking it up with fat or sugar or salt. We're trying to make it affordable for more people. By the way, that's more important today than it was 3 years ago because of all the supply chain shocks that happened. Frankly, costs went up. It's not as cheap to get labor today as it was 3 years ago. It's not as cheap. There isn't a single commodity I think that we buy that goes into our pizzas or dressing and sauces business that's as cheap as it was 3 years ago because of all the things that have happened. We're very conscientious about sodium. We're very conscientious about fat. We're very conscientious about sugar and trying to do the right things to make a healthier and better product. But our industry doesn't get credit for it because we kind of don't really push back on some of these definitions and as I say, a bit of a demonization of the food business. They're trying to make Americans obese. No, we're not. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the fact that we get lumped into these things. The definition of the government of that they're trying to settle on processed food is, hey, if you slice your strawberry industrially, if you slice it, now it's processed.
Yes. Now,
what really makes that process? Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Nothing in any definition that, people are going, oh, it's got to be fresh. It's got to be fresh. It's got to be fresh. So the fact that I'm cutting a strawberry to make it easier for you to use, you're now causing that calling that process. And that process has a negative connotation. It is kind of ridiculous to me. It's not doing anything to help achieve what you really want to achieve, which is helping people make better choices or understand their choices better.
Right.
That's really what you're trying to do here. So look, we make crusts. Guess what? Those crusts are made of the same thing if you made them at home.
Right.
Flour, a little bit of salt, some yeast, some water. We mix it up. All we're doing is mixing that up, making it into a dough ball, pressing it out into a crust. We're putting cheese on it, just like if you had a cow in your back pasture and you harvested milk. Guess what? To turn milk into cheese, take salt and enzymes.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's the exact same thing we're doing. We're just buying it in bigger blocks.
Yeah.
If you wanted to put tomato sauce on your thing and you grew tomatoes in the backyard and you ground them up and you added in, basil and garlic and thyme and some other things, we're just doing that on a really large scale. So, does that qualify as processed, ultra processed, and the negative connotation that goes with that? In my mind, it shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't do that. So, as a industry, I think we've got to do a much better job of telling our story of we're just like your kitchen at home, just bigger. We're not making one pizza tonight. We're making 1 million pizzas so that you can have a tomorrow night quick dinner.
Yeah.
We're using the same steps. We're using the same food. We're using the same things you would do at home. Don't demonize us and put it in this ultra processed category for doing the same things you would do at home. It's just, it's illogical. But it's the narrative being driven by certain people that want to push an agenda that is disconnected from the reality of what we do.
Yes. Yeah. And don't you think that the social media has really accelerated that? Because I know years and years ago, this is back in the 70s, my grandmother got something really weird in her loaf of bread. And I cannot remember what it was. I don't remember if it was a mouse or a finger or something. It was something big. And she called the company. And she didn't call the newspaper. She didn't put it on Facebook. She called the company and they said, oh my goodness, we'll be right over. And seriously, it was a local company. They came right over, got the loaf of bread from her. They said, what would you like? We'll give you. And they wanted to give her buns and rolls and danishes and bread. And she's like, I'm a single lady. Can I have 2 loaves of bread and maybe some hot dog buns for the weekend? That's all she wanted. And did she tell anybody? Oh, she might tell a neighbor. She told us. Yeah. But that's it. Didn't go anywhere else. The company didn't collapse. It didn't go out of business. But now a food company has to be so careful. One misstep could be the downfall of the whole company. Yeah. And these people on social media drive me crazy because I saw one the other day. They showed a label of a Quaker Oats cereal in the United States. Then they showed the same kind of Quaker Oats cereal. They call them different things in England. And ours had an ingredient list like 2 inches long. And the one in England had 5 ingredients. And I was confused by that, why the difference. But my guess is that we dissected out the ingredients down to the minuscule name. Yeah. And in England, they just called it flour, sugar, and flavoring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look, I think like anything in life, there are good and bad that has come out of social media and the internet. look, I love the fact that I can go to Google and I can find out stuff that would have taken me forever to find out in the past. Hey, where can I get the house that I lived in was built in 1928. It's still got a lot of 1928 door locks on it. I need to get some of those door locks refurbished because they just don't work as good as they used to. Well, with the power of the internet, I can go find, 15 places to fix that in about 10 minutes. Oh, wow, look, this one's close. That's awesome. The negative part of that is you can have someone who has no real knowledge of an industry, no real understanding of science, no real understanding of food and nutrition, and they can be just as, if not more loud, impactful from a totally unknowledgeable or irrational point of view as someone who has the real facts, the real science, the real understanding. And that is dangerous, frankly. It's dangerous. I mean, you get people on the internet who can claim whatever they want, and there's no downside to them for claiming whatever they want. They can say, hey, look, Martians brought this dough to the world, and so therefore it's toxic. There's no penalty for them to get on the internet and say those things. None.
No.
People will go, I don't believe that. I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. That's fine. But there are other people that are going to go, oh God, I didn't know that. And they do it so cleverly. What I would say is they have a skill in getting a magnification on a crazy thing because they understand how algorithms work. They understand that sometimes by being outrageous, I get more traffic, I get more eyeballs than if I were trying to be truthful. That in some ways it disincentivizes being honest, and it incentivizes being radical. And that is not a good thing for any society. It's not a good thing for any sharing of knowledge of any culture. Look, I have a political point of view. I will relate politics to what's going on in food because to me it's somewhat similar. Meaning, if you put 95% of Americans in a room and you took out the social media, you took out all this other stuff, we can agree on about 95% of things. Look, is poverty bad? Yeah, poverty's bad. I don't think anybody would agree or disagree that poverty is bad. Now, where we may disagree is in how we address poverty. But if we put people in a room, we can probably rationally agree to 95% of the ideas or approaches in how to address poverty. What happens is it's the 2.5% of the fringe on one side or the 2.5% of the fringe on the other side. The internet has allowed them to be loud or equally loud or louder than the 95% that sit in the middle. And that response, and that's in politics, it's in regulation, it's in science or the lack thereof of science. I hate it when people go, let's do science, and then they espouse something that is completely irrational and non-scientific. And you go, okay, well, how do I believe you now if you're saying science, but you're espousing something that is non-scientific? It's unfortunate. It puts the onus on us as an industry to try to counteract these illogical, irrational, frankly, emotional points of view. Look, I've said it before. I've said it a million times. People make decisions on emotional basis, and they use whatever logic suits their point of view to justify that emotional decision. That is the science of how brains make decisions. Like it or not, we like to think that we're rational. Oh no, we're buying this because of this. Okay, that's you kind of justifying your decision based on a set of emotions. It's why brands have resonance over hundreds and hundreds of years, because they've spent things to connect to people emotionally that they go, gosh, I really feel good buying this versus that. It's why branding works. If you didn't use emotions in making decisions, branding wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And so all those things kind of tie together in a big pot. And I hate to be political about those things, but as I very carefully said, I tried not to tell you where my politics are. I tried to break it down in a way that go, hey, let's not let the fringe in either side drive the reality for where most Americans sit on most every issue. And I have friends that I talk to on both sides of the aisle that we see the same thing. It's the fringe the fringe are marginalizing the mainstream, and that's unfortunate.
Oh, yeah. I have friends that are totally opposite in my political views, and people go, how could you be friends with them? I go, well, we agree on 95% of the stuff. We just don't talk about the other 5. We're not going to argue about things we can't change.
Yeah.
So we agree. I mean, there's not a lot of politics on which wine would you like to have with dinner, and not a lot of politics about picking a movie.
Yeah.
So we can get along with people that don't agree with everything we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to, we weren't going to go political, but I used to like when you could disagree with people and still be friends.
Yeah. I frankly, I love that. I love having the debate, because in being willing to have the debate, you should be willing to change your mind. You should be willing to learn something that you didn't know before you go into the debate. That's the kind of debate I love. I love having the chance to go, ooh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point of view. And now I may change my position because I've learned something. And that's what makes that fun for me. And it should be the way that we approach it, as opposed to just going, no, I'm just hardening my position.
People come in our house. I have 3 children, my husband, and we have 3 children. They're all grown. They're out of the house. I got grandkids. My kids come over for whatever we're going to do. Matter of fact, we're having a little pizza party tonight. Coincidence. But anyways, they come over, and when we have other people here, they're like, you guys fight so much. I'm like, we didn't even have a single fight this evening.
Yeah.
We didn't even have an argument. We're not even a subtle argument. But yet we discuss things loudly, and we make our point of view known. And matter of fact, we have no interest in changing our point of view at the moment, unless you say something that I might go, oh, I never knew that. If you add new information to it, I may change my mind. But yelling about, that doesn't add anything to it. So we're really not fighting. And matter of fact, when my son got married and he's dating his wife, and she was always like telling him, you should not argue with your mother. And he goes, I didn't have any argument with my mother. When did I argue with my mother? And she points out that she goes, we weren't arguing, we were discussing. And she goes, well, it sounded like arguing. Now she's used to it after 5 or 6 years. She's used to us, but we discuss lots of different things. especially how to do something. Like it could be anything from how to make something in the kitchen to who mows the grass correctly and which lawnmower you should own. And believe me, we discuss.
What's the right way to fold towels?
Oh, we discuss everything. We discuss it to death. I mean, some people will leave our house. They're exhausted. They're like, do you people leave any subject unturned? I'm like, no, this is the way we are.
Yeah.
And I find us we're not boring at all. And the funny part is, you probably found this with your kids. For years, in the beginning, you were the smartest person your kids knew. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in the teenage years, you were a moron. You knew nothing. And especially got to their 20s.
Yeah. You're the dumbest person your kids know. Yeah.
Oh, they went to college and they learned all this stuff that they can't believe their parents they couldn't believe that we could get up and survive a day without their knowledge base. How come we can survive and we don't know all the things they know? And then they hit their late 20s, early 30s, and they're doing things like buying houses and stuff. And suddenly they're coming back going, can we ask your advice on this? And I'm always like, sure. So now I feel like I'm in a really good place. I'm a give and take. There's some things I know more than my kids and they ask my advice, but I call my children now and I say, I was looking at this and I didn't know which one to buy and I knew you had it. What should I, do you like it? When should I buy it? Or I was reading about this company. Do you think this is true? Now, during elections and the pandemic, my children would filter things for me. They're like, Mom, don't believe that. Please don't believe that. That's not true. That's some troll on the internet putting stuff out. Like you said, they put stuff out there. They know the algorithms and they get it out there and none of it's true. So they would filter things for me. So when it comes to the knowledge out there that's being generated by these different places, I always go to my kids and go, is this true? And they will talk me down, from the ledge. There were times during the pandemic, I'm going, this isn't true. And they're like, no, it's not true. It's not true. You can come away from the edge. You're fine. And I like that about them, but we discuss everything. I mean, there'll be a discussion tonight, just which movie we're going to watch.
Our family does a similar thing. And, here, I will give a lot of credit to a boss that I had in my past. And I was living in Kansas City, and we used to, make some sales calls down at a little company in Arkansas. And we would make the drive down. And so the drive down from Kansas City to Northwest Arkansas is about 3.5 hours. Not a bad drive. It was better than flying, frankly. You couldn't fly there as quickly as you could drive it because out of Kansas City, you couldn't get anything direct. The point of this is, we would always have really debated discussions, hot discussions in the car ride down back. And this particular boss would always try to take the contra point of view. And those drives flew by because you would be so engaged in whatever it was. And it kind of didn't matter what the subject was. He would always try to take whatever the opposite view to whatever, thing was happening. And it was such a fun drive. And at the end of the driving, you go, yeah, I agree with you guys. I was just doing that so we could have a fun conversation. And I always thought it was fun to do that. And it made the time fly, because you're engaging, you're thinking, you're having some give and take and hopefully learning something along the way. Cause that's what I look at it as. I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're right. You need to listen to the other side, because if you are willing and open to listen to both sides, you will often learn something. And it doesn't matter where it is. Neither side has it perfect. Neither side knows everything. What you need to do is you need to gather information from both sides and form your own point of view. That's the best way of trying to figure out a lot of things in life, a lot of things in life come from learning from both sides.
Yeah, but I find a lot of people are afraid of confrontation or discussing or arguing, because I worked for a company once. Where arguing, disagreeing was embraced. You could actually disagree with your boss. No one was chastised for having an argument with their boss. And we would have, I remember one time I was just having an argument with my boss, just down and out, having this argument. And she says, "Oh, it's noon. Do you want to go to lunch?" I was like, "Oh yeah, let's go to lunch." We went to lunch, had a very pleasant lunch and everything. Never discussed what we were discussing before. We came back back in the office, and we went back at it and finished our discussion. And nobody hated each other. Nobody went home going, "Well, I'm quitting tomorrow," because you were supposed to work it out. You were supposed to come to a decision. You're supposed to get to a conclusion. And I find a lot of people nowadays will just agree. I used to tell my employees, if you're saying yes to me all the time, there's a problem, because I am not the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
I said, together we're all the smartest people in the room, but there is no one person that's smarter than all of us together. And so if you're always agreeing with me, then there's a problem.
I'll tell you what, Maureen, I can't agree with you more. That I love that. I had that at my very first company that I worked at. Really hot, heated discussions. Sometimes, not every time, but sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, all right, we're done. Hey, let's go out, get lunch, and how's your kids? How's your family? How's this going? And that's the culture that I'm trying to create here at Richelieu. Is, I will say it all the time, guys, do not be afraid to have a different point of view. I want you to have a different point of view. I want you to bring up, I'm the first one to admit, hey guys, I got an idea. It may be a stupid idea. I want you to tell me if it's stupid. You're not going to hurt my feelings. In fact, I encourage you to tell me if it's stupid. Because just because my title on the door doesn't mean that I know everything. It means I have a point of view, but you have a point of view. We all have a point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking things from a frame or a context that I think fits, but I can miss it. I can miss it by 1,000 miles, or I can miss it by an inch. I need you to tell me if you're missing it by 1,000 miles or you're missing it by an inch. Okay, now we're all smarter together. As a group, we're all smarter than we are individually. There's no way that one person can be smarter than the 10 people in this room. It's just not, it's not possible. So Have that debate, bring it up, let's push each other in that right, professional, respectful way that says, I can have a different point of view. I can have a different thought process than you based on my experience, my context than yours. It's different. That's why we're here together. We want to make that right decision, and I need everybody contributing to this so we can find out what is right. I try so hard to go, forget the name on the door. Okay. It's the title on the door. Forget it. It doesn't mean anything. I need your input, Maureen. I need your input, Tim or Mary or whoever it is. I need it. Let's get together, decide, bring up the points of view. That's how we make the best decision. It's not Brian's decision is the best decision.
Yeah, but I'll bet that you go out there into your company, your plants with your people, and I bet you ask people, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? And if you open that conversation, I'm sure that they will share. But there's lots of people who don't want their opinion and don't want to know what they think, and they'll keep their mouth shut to the detriment of the company.
Yeah, and look, as much as you try to foster that environment, you can't get everybody to buy into it at every time, and that's okay. Um, uh, I like to say I can bring the horse to the water, but I can't make the horse drink.
Right.
So I'm opening up the thing. I'm opening it up so that you will put in input, but I can't make you put in input. And hopefully what you learn through interactions over time is that your input is safe here. I'm not, nobody should be going, well, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If I go down in a meeting, I'm going to go, hey, we'll pull that person aside after the meeting and go, hey, can't do that. Look, we're trying to get the best decision. It may not be completely clear to you why that person has that point of view. That's okay. Learn why they have that point of view, because you may find out that there's nuggets in there that you just haven't thought of. So we're not going to have that. We're not going to quote unquote bully a response like that. No, we want the response like that because that's how we get better, because we may find something that just goes, oh, I never thought of that. I can't tell you how many times you go, I never thought of that. Well, that's a beautiful thing.
Sometimes you're too close to it. So you can't even see, and somebody else sees it. I remember when, I'm going to make me date myself. I remember when the email came out. We got email, and I remember my secretary. We had a computer on her desk, and I'd give her the emails, and she'd write them and send them from our info address. And I hired a new person, and she was there for a while, and she goes, "Why don't you all have computers on your desk?" And I was like, well, why would we do that? And she's explaining, and she's telling me all these things about how it would benefit us. And I was like, isn't that expensive? And she said, I don't think so. We went out, checked it out. What did it cost? A little bit? Yes.
Yeah.
Was the benefit much bigger? That, the return on investment was huge, but we never even discussed it. We didn't think about it. So this new person came in, and I laugh now because, we're so far beyond that concept. But just her saying, I think you all need your own computer. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember those dates too, Maureen. And the funny thing is I only print stuff now, Al, because I have to. Because somebody goes, no, I've got to have a signature in blue ink, and you kind of go, come on, get with the times, get the dot loop or the DocuSign or something going. Come on, let's make this efficient. Why do I need to print this out? I don't want to print that out. That's waste. Let's figure out a better way to do this. But that's the evolution of business. That's the evolution of life and technology, and to me, those things are cool. I like to say I know enough about technology to be dangerous. I'm not great at it, but I'm very willing to embrace it. I'm very willing to go, oh, that's cool. Why are we doing this anymore? Let's stop and do it this way.
Oh, yeah. I have lots of people on speed dial to help me because I don't know how to do certain things. But, I said to my husband the other day, I said, you know what? I think they don't have those commercials anymore about killing too many trees because nobody prints anything on paper anymore. You could have an office that's paperless.
I'm telling you, the only things I print anymore literally are contracts that I have to sign because somebody needs a signature on it in an ink that's different than, the color to prove that it's not a, fake signature or something. But anyway, that's progress, and that's progress I like.
What do you what are your challenges going forward? Now we came through the pandemic and we came through the maybe hopefully the supply chain's gotten straightened out. So what's the next challenge?
Yeah, look, I think the next challenge for us at Richelieu is we're on our strategy is to become indispensable to our customers. So that's our challenge. That is our strategy. How do we become indispensable? And so I think the definition of indispensable is continually changing. And I'll give you some context on why I think that is. Look, having a good quality product is table stakes. That's not a quality differentiator anymore. If you don't have a good quality product, you're not in the business, period. It's a lot of people will maybe be a little bit surprised about what I'm going to say. It's one of the reasons that the plant-based meat business kind of had the boom, and now it's having a bit of a bust. Because not that they haven't tried really, really hard to make a great product, but here's what I will tell you is it doesn't completely deliver against meat. It just doesn't yet. I mean, it's close. Mm-hmm. They're working hard to get there, but it's not all the way there from texture. It's not all the way there from a flavor. It's not all the way there from a total experience. And by the way, I will reflect this back because this happened in the fat products, like cheese and butters and stuff like that. 25 years ago, the early adopters came out. There were a lot of triers, and they didn't generate the repeat. A lot of American consumers are willing to try anything once. A huge portion are willing to try anything once. But if you don't fully and completely deliver on the quality characteristics that the person is expecting, they will not buy it again. And by the way, so this happened in the low fat days. It happened in the low carb days. Mm-hmm. I think it's happening now in the plant-based days. I think a lot of people worked really hard to come out with what they felt like was a great product. I do not want to denigrate in any way, shape, or form the challenge that it would be to try to create a meat substitute from a plant basis. That's really, really hard. There's a lot that went into that. There is a benefit of being first to the market in that. And I think you had two guys that were out there basically at the same time as the first to market. I think they generated a tremendous amount of buzz and a tremendous amount of trial and not nearly enough repeat. And that's kind of why we've seen these companies go from, oh my gosh, they're Wall Street darlings to, is the plant category dead? No, it's not dead.
No.
You're always going to have a hardcore set of consumers that are willing to have some compromises. Okay, I'm willing to compromise because of this or that, because I believe in the plant-free or the animal-free product. So I'm willing to compromise some on texture. I'm willing to compromise some on taste or total product experience. But that's a pretty small set of people that are really willing to make all those compromises. The average consumer, I like to consider myself as an average consumer. Do I want to eat healthier? Yeah, I want to eat healthier. Do I always make the right choices? No, I don't always make the right choices. Am I willing to try it? Yeah, I'm willing to try it. But if it doesn't deliver, I'm not buying it again. And I think that's what's happening there. So that's a long way of saying in the journey to becoming indispensable to customers is you got to have quality is the table stakes. Repeat shows that you can win. And being indispensable to customers is not just trial. It is repeat. And so you've got to deliver on that quality story every day, all day, or you're not going to win. That's just one element of that. The second element of that is delivering innovation. You've got to innovate. The vast majority of what food companies do is are line extensions, not true innovations, because true innovation is really, really hard. Mm-hmm. It's really, really hard. And by the way, 90% of them fail. So how do you figure out a way to try to truly innovate? And the innovation can be close-in line extensions, or it can be something completely new. But you've got to be the company that's continually bringing those ideas forward to retailers to be that indispensable. Service, you got to be excellent on service. I mean, that's somewhat table stakes now, but I will say, it is still hard to do that at a very, very high level. Almost anybody can service at what I call 90%.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of companies can service at 95. Very few can service consistently at 98 and above, because the margins just start getting harder. Any deviation starts getting harder.
Mm-hmm.
So that is part of being indispensable. And then it's about, how else do I figure out ways to deliver value beyond innovation, beyond a great quality that drives repeat, how to beyond having exceptional service, beyond delivering insights about the consumer to our retailer partners to help them grow categories. You've got to continually try to be uncovering the what's next in that area to be indispensable. And that's the journey that we're on. I would say we're still early in that journey. We've got a lot of ways that we can continue to be much, much, much better. We're working really hard to get there as quickly as we can. I think as an organization, we're pretty good. We're not satisfied with where we're at, and frankly, we want to continue to raise the bar so that, when a customer has an opportunity in the categories that we play, that they call us up and go, "Hey, you're the guy we want to talk to because you deliver on all the things that we need." That's our ultimate goal. That's what we're pushing hard for, is to be indispensable to our customers, and that's our challenge, and that's what we're shooting for.
When you talk about customers, you're talking about the food companies that you are making these products for. Do you ever hear from the actual customer, like me? I eat one of your pizzas. Do you ever hear from us?
Yeah. And so, look, I think that's one of the things that's unique about private label as compared to brands. I think brands are hardwired to deliver to the consumer first. And by the way, the retailer is your way to get it to the consumer. I really care about the consumer. Private label is unique because we have to care about both. So I want the consumer, that the repeat comes from the consumer. It doesn't come from the retailer. So we do hear from consumers. We get that feedback through our retailer partners, and we try to take that feedback and work and figure out how to deliver on the areas that the consumer thinks that we've fallen short or that we can do better on. But we also have our first constituent is the retailer. Our second constituent is the consumer. I've got to keep both of them happy. And that is a little bit different, because the branded people, while they want to keep the retailer happy, I'm not saying that they don't. Their primary thing is, if I can get the consumer, if I can create enough pull, the retailer will have to carry me. Mm-hmm. The retailer will have to do things, even though they may not like all the ways that I do it. If I can create enough end consumer demand, they will kind of be forced to carry our products. Again, I'm not saying that they're trying to shortchange the retailer, but their end goal is to create that consumer connection. We've got to do both, and it's harder because sometimes the consumer and the customer things are not totally in alignment.
Yeah.
Meaning a retailer may have a very, very strong point of view on what the cost should be, as opposed to, okay, well, we can get to that cost, but are you sure that it's going to, make the consumer happy? I would say retailers are infinitely better than they were 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
the cost trade-off was much more significant 30 years ago because they kind of were like, oh yeah, but it's about making the margin. Retailers have gotten much more sophisticated, much more consumer in tune, and much more going, okay, I really like this quality. This is the quality we need to deliver. These are the products that we need to do these things. Can you work on the cost to get it better? There's always going to be the pressure to get the cost as low as possible. They're much more in tune about making their brand, whatever that brand is, be a brand of resonance with consumers. And that's how I think private label, has matured over the last 30 years that I've been in the business. It used to be white label. Oh yeah, well, we're going to make it as cheap as we can. We don't really care about the quality, but we got it really, really cheap. Now the retailers really care about the quality. Sometimes there's that conflict there, but they're much better, much more conscientious, much more prepared to manage the store brand as a real brand, as a competitor to a Kraft or a Heinz or a P&G type product. They really think about that much more sophisticated than they used to. And that ultimately is a really good thing because, as I've said before, repeat is king. Trial will happen. Repeat is king. And the maturing of the industry to be much more in tune to that is a good thing for consumers and everyone involved.
Yeah. And, I'm a big shopper of Aldi. And sometimes they have a product I really like. And then it changes. And sometimes I'm complaining. I'm like, why did this change? And they flat out tell you, we changed manufacturers. We switched, went to a different manufacturer. And we're like, sometimes it's a compliment. I'm like, whoa, this really changed. What'd you do? And they went to a different manufacturer. I'm like, this is good. They had a product it was like a year ago. And it was keto bagels. All right. And I don't know why, but I've tried all the keto breads out there because I love bread and I feel like I could consume more if it's keto. And really, I have found every one of them to be terrible except Aldi. I don't know who makes Aldi's. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't tried real hard. But they had a keto bagel. And I was in Florida, I think. And I got some and these were amazing. And I've called Aldi and everything. And they said, we lost our manufacturer. I don't know what they meant by we lost our manufacturer. So there has not been any keto bagels ever again at Aldi. And it makes me sad. And when I tell other people about them, like, I never saw them. I'm like, yes, it was a blip. It was just like a 3-month blip. And I only caught it one day and got 2 packages and have never seen it again. I still think about it a year later. I still think about it, but they a store like Aldi, since they don't, Aldi doesn't make anything. That's another thing in the food industry. I explain to people in the grocery store. I'm like, well, Aldi doesn't make any of this stuff. They're like, what do you mean it doesn't make any of this stuff? I'm like, yeah, it doesn't make anything. And they don't understand that. It says Aldi brand on it. And I just sometimes walk away. You do too. You just walk away.
That goes back to our hidden industry discussion a little bit. It is a hidden industry. People don't, again, because it's there and it works, they kind of don't think about it. But yeah, look, I would say, Aldi is a customer that despite, their low cost image, their price focus or discount focus in the market from a consumer perspective, does a really, really good job of making sure that the quality is high. So, like I said, I think sometimes those are in conflict. Most of the time, they're not in conflict. Most of the time, it's a really good discussion about, okay, I can do that, but here's the impact. And retailers are way smarter than they were in the past about, well, okay, well, that's not a trade-off I'm willing to accept. And that's a good thing.
Many, many years ago, I'd have discussions with people because I knew where some of these food products came from. And they're like, we're not going to buy the store brand. That's not a good thing. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Sometimes it's actually made by the same company that made the brand one. And they do Me Too's. They reverse engineer and make this product exactly the same as the store brand. So you're supporting the store better by buying the store brand than you are by buying the brand. And you save yourself money. And I said, you get the exact same product. And I used to challenge people, just go try it. Just try it. And we're not talking about generic. Remember those years when for a few years we had generic and the black and white labels and everything? Oh, they were scary. They were purposely trying to fool you into buying it and have it cheap. And so your expectation was it was bad. But yeah, store brands, I tell them all the time, buy the private label, buy those. They actually may surprise you. You may even like it better.
Yeah. And you know what? It's sometimes when you talk to people about store brands, they kind of go, what's that? And you kind of go, it's way more ubiquitous than you think. So when you go into the Gap and you buy Gap brand, what is that? Well, it's a brand. Technically, it's their store brand. It's the Gap store. Yeah. Old Navy, what is that? Old Navy, and you're selling Old Navy clothes in there? That's all private brand. It's just sometimes you got to change your context or your frame of thinking about it. Craftsman in tools. Who hasn't heard of the Craftsman tool brand? Guess what? Sears private label is Craftsman. Or was.
Yeah, that's right.
Kenmore. I mean, so many things have been private brands in your history, but that they've done such a good job positioning it well that you kind of didn't really realize what it was. And Old Navy, Gap, two really good examples from the clothing side. Craftsman and Kenmore from a durable goods side, and if you think about Great Value, the Great Value brand is one of the largest brands in the world when you add up all the things that they do together. The Kirkland brand, one of the largest brands in the world when you add up all the things that they do. So, it's like I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's a fun business. Every day is a little bit different. Every day is a little bit different challenge for this, that, and the other. But it's why I think the food business is fun. It's not as sexy as, crypto or Bitcoin or whatever the heck else it is. But I like to say food is largely recession-proof. Not, and I do mean largely. It's not completely recession-proof. It's largely recession-proof because we all like to eat.
I think it is the sexy thing to talk about, though, because everyone wants to talk about food. You just bring up food shows, food baking. You bring it all up. Everyone wants to talk about it. And some people say they can't believe you get to work in that. I mean, would you rather go to a convention about pizza or a convention about crypto coin or whatever? I'd go with the pizza.
Definitely the pizza convention.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything we needed to cover today. Have any parting words? I think actually what you said before was your parting words about what the fun industry.
But the food industry is a great industry. It's a fun industry. It's dynamic. It's constantly changing because the consumer is constantly changing. I think that makes it incredibly challenging, incredibly stimulating, and allows you to be incredibly creative too. That's some of the things that I love about the food business. You can be creative. You could come up with some ideas that somebody may think is, well, out there. What? You're going to do that? Yeah. Well, let's try it. It's an industry that's crucial to America. It's an industry that has allowed us to spend our income on other things, which Americans like to spend their income on other things. It's vital. The gains that the food industry have created in production all the way through. I don't, if you flash back to the late 70s, early 80s, there was an author that, wrote a book, and I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it was about population boom. The world will not be able to sustain, a population bigger than X billion or Y billion. Well, here we are, 30, 40 years later, we're sustaining them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why are we sustaining them? Because we've gotten better at it. Our industry, despite what others may say, has the best intentions at heart. We want to provide food, good tasting food at a value. We're not, I like to say that we're altruistic in that standpoint, but maybe that's not the right word. But I think we try to do the right thing, and at the end of the day, we're just a big kitchen.
There you go. There you have it. Well, thank you very much, Brian.